started, I'm going to just ask each one if you want to kind of add something else about your business that you'd like the group to know. Phil?
Yeah, data is fascinating. Geez, that's really loud.
That's actually
Sorry, everybody. We help application owners understand what their audiences are doing inside of their software, so they can make their software better for their users. I don't know. It's interesting. We're like the NSA for app developers, basically.
That's cool. Very good.
Carol?
Our newest venture is actually manufacturing. So it's kind of like starting all over again. And we have a 160,000 square foot aerospace and defense manufacturing center headquartered over in Cape Canaveral. And like I said, it's a startup. We've got all kinds of capabilities and all kinds of potential. And so we're just very slowly, working our way into growing that. One of the things that I was kind of getting a little stressed about was having not all my eggs in one basket, but really focusing on federal government. Even though it was NASA and it was DOD and it was VA, all kinds of different agencies, still the whole government world is very low margins and it gets a little stressful. So I thought, I'll diversify some more. And so we moved into manufacturing. And now we can focus on some of the really up and coming types of industries like civil commercial aviation. We've seen that come back up. And then commercial space. We're supporting Boeing and we're supporting Sierra Nevada and SpaceX and some of those others when it comes to the manufacturing of the new space vehicles. So that's pretty cool. So that's what we're working on.
Very cool. Very cool. Carlos?
Cool. So we've been a third-party software developer for 5 years, and we've made other companies millions. So we decided to spin off and have our own product, and we're raising capital right now. We have a few investors, and we're going to be launching a Beacon content management system. And we started developing it for ourselves, and then decided to go ahead and spin up and start another company. And we already have clients, we already have some commitments, and it's my first foray into true entrepreneurship where you raise capital, because my first company was self-funded, so pretty exciting.
Good. Mary?
We're really excited about the work that we're doing at Next Galaxy, especially in the area of virtual reality, because traditionally it's been for gaming and also for defense simulation, et cetera. And we're now bringing a lot of consumer virtual reality even to business. We're developing everything from experiences for sports, education, which I'm truly excited about, and even real estate and a whole lot more. So I'm very, very excited about the work that we're doing. And I truly believe that with what we're seeing with virtual reality, it's truly the next it's the next communications and computing platform. We're going towards Web 3.0, which is going to be the virtual web. So even in retail applications where you go on somebody's website and now you put on the glasses and you can look at clothes and really interact the way humans are supposed to process information by naturally moving through the store with this format. So we're very excited.
Great. Well, we talked about this afternoon, too, that a small percentage of entrepreneurs really wanted their company to grow. There was a data point given that many people just want a lifestyle business, and there was a small amount of entrepreneurs that did want to grow, and I know all of you want to grow your business. Can you share, what your vision is for your company? Where do you see it going, Mary?
My vision for this company, actually, today is a significant day for this question because exactly 25 years to the day, September 29, 1989, my parents put me on a plane to come to America alone as a teenager. I was 16 because they wanted me to have a better life. And a lot of the dreams or hopes that they packed with me, I feel like I've been able to access because of my education in engineering. But the thing is, I did not, know about engineering. I didn't know any engineers, and I had come to believe that all that deep, the space stuff, the technology stuff, that was stuff that other people did. It wasn't, stuff that people like me, it wasn't something that, we did. I ended up in the Air Force, and it was there that I got the opportunity to work on satellite communications. So all of a sudden, I was hands-on working with, gyroscopes, accelerometers, and spectrum analyzers, and all these things that I thought were seemingly complex things for other people. I discovered by being hands-on and experiencing this stuff that not only did I enjoy working with technology, that I was actually, really great at it. So I went back to school and became an engineer. And since then, have been able to come up with some of the technology that Leslie mentioned, technology that's been commercialized by Boeing, today provides thousands of jobs for others. And so my vision with Next Galaxy and through our virtual reality technologies is to take these seemingly complex concepts and make them relatable, make them accessible, and also make them palatable for people, and to be able to expose kids to this kind of stuff at a much early age. And imagine if you had kids going through space, going on a space travel or feeling the sands of Mars, doing all these kinds of things. How likely are they to remember it versus just reading a book? And that's our goal, that's our vision with Next Galaxy, is to create the next generation of tools to make VR classrooms a part, make virtual reality a part of our classrooms, period. Research shows that 9 out of 10 kids double their attention span when they're exposed to these type of concepts through virtual reality. Another 8 out of 10 end up improving their test levels. So we want to be able to marry our expertise and a lot of the wizardry, the stuff that we've done with Hollywood, and create very interesting educational tools with virtual reality.
Great. Carlos, what's your vision for the future for your company?
Well, first of all, I'm in awe of everything that you're doing. I've known Mary for many years, and I just still can't wrap my head around half of the things that you do, but it's pretty amazing. I'm also an immigrant, and it's an immigrant and Latino. It's just extremely important to mentor and to be out there and to put yourself out there. I mean, sometimes it's uncomfortable, to be in front of a group of people like this, or to, set some time aside to come do these things. But I always see it as, if I post something on Facebook and somebody else is encouraged and inspired to be an entrepreneur, that's why I do what I do sometimes. But my vision with the company is having having been a third-party application developer for 5 years, I started getting frustrated by the fact that we have built some cool product, but have been constricted by the client's vision. And that's not to say that we don't appreciate the experience and that I don't love partnering with amazing organizations, but we realized that we became an incubator of ideas because every time we made recommendations to our clients or started exploring things for our clients that they may or may not have ran with, we realized that we could build whole products, whole companies out of that. So this first company, Echo 42, that's going to manage beacons, wasn't really out of an idea from one of our clients, but it's going to be our first foray into spinning off of Echo. And Echo is in cruise control. I'm going to be able to step down and appoint Amy Jansura as president, and I'm going to be able to concentrate on all these other ideas. And we've already had incredible validation from some major players. And again, we already have some inroads with some clients and some prospects. So hopefully that's something that could survive. And I could actually, my vision is also to spin off these different companies. And I've had some great employees and people that have stuck with me through thick and thin. And I want to go ahead and appoint them president of all those companies and just further like a mini entrepreneurship ecosystem out of Echo alone.
Exciting. Carol, what's your vision?
Well, I'm going to continue on talking about like what Mary and Carlos said about, opening this up, making sure that other children, other individuals have these opportunities that we don't. I'm a female engineer as well, and actually my grandfather came over from Havana, but I'm adopted. So I found that out later. So I see firsthand kind of what that nature versus nurture, and I was very blessed to end up where I ended up, to be chosen by my family. So that's where a lot of the initiatives that I do and things like you guys are doing, I feel like I got to give back. But I actually have a little bit more of a personal reason for wanting to continue to grow the company and move forward. I basically have 3 companies now. I have Craig Technologies, which is the engineering side of everything, and I grew that over the last several years. And then I've got this manufacturing center, and then I've also spun off a software type of a company. But I have a child with a rare genetic disorder, and so what drives me, in all honesty, is what if something happens to me? I can't just do the lifestyle. It'd be fun to just be able to have this great salary and, live life at the fullest. But the problem is, someone needs to be able to, I need to be able to make sure that my son is taken care of. Mm-hmm. So I created those 3 because I knew I had different timelines for everything. In the software one, we have some patented software types of applications, and that was no kidding. We developed this strictly to spin it off and sell it and be done. The manufacturing center, the focus is maybe a little more short-term, but not necessarily like holding on for many, many years. But that has the focus of, listen, Brevard County's hurting. That was one of the reasons that, I knew that I could do something, I could take a risk. We could bring more jobs in. And frankly, we can take back a lot of those jobs that have been outsourced. And that's a personal, I hope I don't offend anybody, but, I feel like there's a lot of people here locally that need jobs and can do the work. And so that's that focus there. And then, of course, the other side of it. So that's the vision I see. One is to put something away for my family, instead of having all this debt invested. But the other is to really make a bigger impact in the community in which I live, which is all, not just Brevard. I mean, I'm all on board for the whole Central Florida. It is one region. I'm involved in Enterprise Florida, Florida Chamber, High Tech. I mean, this is what it's all about right here and spreading it out throughout the state of Florida and Miami and it's our state. So,
Bill, what's your vision?
good job, won't last.
I just want to survive the end of the year, be employed in January, that'd be nice. So I'll speak about two things, and I'll try to keep it brief. The first is with my real company, Split, we believe that the world of software should be personalized for individual users in an audience rather than users having to find themselves inside of software. And if you think about the world of personalization, the most obvious place you see this today is in the form of recommendation engines. So Netflix has a really good recommendation engine. You watch a movie, you like it, they give you 5 other recommendations of movies to watch. Amazon, on the other hand, actually doesn't have a great recommendation engine because it's based on your most recent browsing history rather than leveraging context in your purchasing behavior. I buy things in May for my wife's birthday and things in June for Father's Day, yet when I show up on the site in June, it makes recommendations for what I just purchased for my wife. So anyway, we're trying to figure out how to help companies understand what their users need and personalize software for that user experience. The company is venture-backed, and we raised money formative to starting the company. We literally incorporated the company as we secured a round of financing. So there was no company. It was an idea. It was literally a PowerPoint and a resume that elicited the funding. And the introduction to that investor and the ascent up the learning curve on how to raise money came on the back of my neighbor who owned a boat with a guy that ran a venture company. And I got to thinking, starting a company in town and raising a round should not be dependent on who your owner owns a boat with. So one of the outputs of all that sort of realization was it should be easier for people to get started in this region. We have a relatively immature early stage capital life cycle, and there's a lot of knowledge that you have to gain in a very, very short period of time in order to go raise a round and attract an institutional investor. So one of the ways that we're going to try to contribute to expanding entrepreneurialism in our region is we created this co-working space called Canvas. And we're solving some of the needs that early stage entrepreneurs have, particularly how do I find space, how do I connect to community, how do I find a pool of vendors that's well oriented and understands the needs of startups, and hopefully how do I find sources of early stage capital.
We talked at lunchtime about what makes an entrepreneur, how can we help create entrepreneurs, and nobody may have that formula or figure it out, but at a minimum, everyone in this room, government, civic, business, can feed and support the folks that rise to the top and say, I'm willing to take this challenge. So there are things everybody in this room can do to help these folks succeed. And so I want to talk about kind of what are some of the obstacles, the issues that you face right now kind of growing your company in Florida. Mary, what challenges are you facing right now?
I think 3 things that bubble up to the top. The first one is access to capital. When I decided to launch the virtual reality aspect of the company, it was very difficult to find capital in the local community, to find access to funding, especially for something that was pre-revenue and also an idea. I ended up going to California, to Silicon Valley. That was a transformative experience for me because what I found is that the culture it's like night and day.
You went over there as a Google entrepreneur. You were selected, and Google selects a few people and brought Mary over to help her refine her pitch for investors. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you. So so I participate in the Google for Entrepreneurs program, and in addition to working with me to make sure that my business can be positioned for the highest likelihood of success, I was also introduced to a lot of different people, and I found the process to be really validating because I was beginning to burn out in terms of trying to raise capital here. And what I found was that, it's not a coincidence that Silicon Valley's got, LinkedIn and most of the big tech companies, because a lot of the established and bigger companies have this paid-forward imperative, and they don't do it, as charity or to the new startups, but they do it because they realize that in order to sustain that economy, they have to continue the cycle of getting this new innovation into their economy, and most of the innovation comes from hungry companies, not from comfortable, satisfied companies. And so a lot of them invest in these younger companies. One thing that I thought really illustrated this point, I had a chance to go to Facebook. I spent a day there with them as well. And as you enter the campus, you see the Sun Microsystems sign is still up because they've taken over the Sun Microsystems building. And this once tech giant that basically created the foundation for the internet, they came up with Java and all of this stuff. They're now this little sign that hides behind the like sign. And they left it up, they left their signs in the dining rooms, in the cafeterias, so that they will never forget to be able to reach back. If Sun had invested in, that young idea with Zuckerberg, Facebook today, I just saw that contributes over 250,000 jobs to the U.S. economy. And so it's that mindset that we have to constantly rally around ideas, so ideas get funded. It's much, much easier, and there are a lot of structures in place to get ideas funded. I was able to raise the initial $500,000 that I was looking for, and now we've been able to build our proof of concept. We have some big companies that are looking forward to using our platform, so we're back, getting ready to raise the next set of capital that we need to be able to execute now on what we have in our pipeline, which means I'm going back to California. Hopefully I don't have to go back.
No, we're not going to let her go back, because these venture capital companies tend to want to pull the company to where they are. So I'm going to work very hard to make sure Mary stays here in Florida. So
Right, but our initial capital, 100% of it was raised, same ideas, different places, same team, same resume, same idea, but I got the right people rallied around it. So, and the interesting thing is I met other companies from Florida, some of which had moved out, and others that, were also trying to find capital outside of the state. So I think that making access to funding and capital, that would be great, and access to the right talent. VR is a very specialized area. And then, the third part is you kind of feel like a silo a lot of times because you don't have access to a lot of the other companies that are working with you. We get subcontracts when we were offering services, subcontracts from companies outside the state that have contracts from different companies here, and then we have to do that. So all of that, those would be the three things that bubble up to the top.
okay, great. Carlos, what's your biggest obstacle right now that you face growing your company here?
I think that I've been very fortunate because, like I said, it's my first foray into raising capital, and I think that these folks here have had it even harder. But I still recognize that I'm fortunate because I've been able to make certain connections with certain people, much to what Phil mentioned. It was happenstance, for example, for him. I think for me, I've made connections through some of the boards that I belong to. Maybe I'm extrovert and I know a lot of people and people know what I'm about at all times because I'm pretty vociferous about it. So people have connected me to capital, and I haven't gone the VC route. I'm going the angel investor route. And those are pretty much people who believe in you, who know you, who understand your reputation, and will pretty much give you money.
And
we have a couple
they're all
investors.
local angels you're finding?
All local.
Okay.
All local. But it makes me think, well, and this is for total 500,000, so that's a very small. It doesn't, it's not a lot. Once we go, to other rounds, I don't really think it's available in Central Florida, and maybe I'm being a pessimist, but that's what everybody tells me. So, I couldn't imagine if somebody had a more, not necessarily a grandiose idea, but a more ambitious concept, yet viable concept. I don't think that they would be able to find it in Central Florida. And I don't know if the money's just not there, or if we haven't created that process of education where people know that there are viable ideas that you could fund. or maybe there aren't those ideas that get people excited enough. But I think that to answer the question about what people could do, I think that facilitating those connections.
Yeah.
We've been fortunate in Central Florida. Mayor Dyer and his staff are just tremendously accommodating. And I mean, they're the ones that pick up the phone and call you when there's, a new company moving into town, or if there's somebody that they think may be interested in an idea because you've talked to them. And I think that they've plugged themselves into the local tech scene. I hope that happens, in other municipalities, and that people don't discount a ragtag group of people that wears jeans and t-shirts, because it's not a big company, or because you just don't understand the type of technology. I think that taking the time to understand the type of technology, the type of people, their background, and forget about your preconceived notions about what an entrepreneur is, or what a startup is, or what it means. And remembering that a startup is a state of mind. A startup is a company that's on the path of having an exit and having an exit strategy. But a startup could be a company of 50 employees and millions in revenue. So that moniker sometimes I think hurts us.
Yeah.
May sound sexy, but I think it makes a lot of people think, that's not a viable company. But I think paying attention to their stories is crucial.
I think, we do have to be careful with the definition. I think Marty Rubin, who runs Smart City, it's over 500 employees, considers himself an entrepreneur. So you're right. We need to just kind of support what's needed at each stage of that business life cycle. Carol, what's your biggest challenge right now growing your company here?
Two things. One is money, finances. And, like Carlos was saying, I'm self-funded. The growth has been through no acquisition of other companies, and it's all been, everything we earn, we throw back in, and I've still got double mortgages on my house and all kinds of stuff like that because I want to keep growing. So, but my thing is, and it's my own fault because I'm kind of hesitant to move to the VC, the angel investors, and I'm starting to consider mezz financing, but I don't like having to worry about somebody else's money. I'd rather worry about my own. But I do see that, especially with the manufacturing and the software, my growth will take longer. It'll take as long as the first company if I don't do something. So I'm kind of, I'm still wrestling with, do I want to do that? What I would prefer to go with banks, but unfortunately, it doesn't matter if you have a great track record or not. Banks have, such strict regulations that you feel like you're constantly justifying, even when you can see how positive and, how things are compared to everyone else, things are going. So it sounds like I'm a little angry about it. Is there anyone from Regions here? Sorry. But anyway, so that's it. But I'll tell you what the second thing is. And I was thinking of as I was sitting here, it's peer support. And it's nothing against, the rest of the community or anyone, like you said, there's great organizations, Orlando Inc., everything like that, but there's something different about those who have pretty much put everything they have on the line. And that's constant every day. And to understand that stress, and then also to hear other stories where you go, okay, yeah, I can do that. And especially from a female perspective too, to know, okay, that I can see the excitement and there's more and I can do more and, with all of us together. And that's all I need is that every once in a while a little pump up of, yes, you can do it, go for it. What you're doing is worth it. Don't give up yet. So, and unfortunately, and maybe I'm in Brevard County and that's a little bit of a different dynamic over there. But I think it could be different. We could change. But even here, I see more of that when I go out to California, when I go to, if I go to Texas, I see a little bit more of that peer support with some of the entrepreneurs, and then of course the DC in those areas. So maybe there's more we can do there besides your YPO and WPO organizations, which tend to be kind of small.
Absolutely. I hear that quite a bit. Phil, what's your greatest challenge right now?
So it's revenue. And, what's interesting about the capital problem, I saw a gentleman in the back sort of like throwing his hands up like, I've got money, I can write you guys checks. And if you do, I want your business card wherever you are. I think that, so let me put a finer point on it. I think that later stage capital is readily available and easy to come by. And so what I mean by that is once you're over some threshold of top line revenues, $2 to $5 million, that I can go raise money from any capital market in the country. And the early stage guys, the people that are funding pre-revenue companies, like to be local because they're not just funding your business, they're helping you stand your business up. And so they're bringing to the table their Rolodex on here are the people that you need to go hire about your management team, and here's a bunch of folks to, I'm going to open doors for you so that you will generate revenue that'll take you to that next level so that another investor can come in and write the next round. That part of the capital market just does not really exist here. Now we do have a growing angel community.
Yep.
It is much more robust than it was even just 3 years ago from my perspective. But one of the challenges with angel groups or communities, there's a few challenges, and one is they tend to be slow on evaluating opportunities. Oftentimes, they're individually writing checks, and so each angel has to make an investment decision. The second challenge is they're oftentimes being asked to invest outside of their business area of expertise, and so it's a challenge when you're being asked to invest in something disruptive that you don't really understand the fundamentals of. People tend to be a little bit more reluctant. The third, and then I think the next big problem to this early capital challenge is a problem that is pervasive in the ecosystem, which is VC funds truly disruptive technologies, right? This is a swing for the fences industry. And actually, I think it's one of the greatest aspects of the American economy is that we have a very robust venture capital system that funds the most innovative companies. And every company that you read about in Inc. or in Fortune or Forbes was probably venture-backed at its beginning, at its formation. The companies that we've just talked about, Apple or Hewlett-Packard or Sun Microsystems or Facebook or LinkedIn or any of these, all VC-backed. So when you have access to that kind of capital, you can really take big risks. And without that, when you're self-funding, when you're mortgaging your house, it makes you a lot more conservative as an entrepreneur. You're just not willing to risk everything, right? And so you tend to take smaller bets. And I think as a result of that, markets like ours aren't seeing the same level of disruption and innovation that you see in places where early stage venture capital is a lot more prevalent.
Let me ask you too, what about talent? We talk a lot about talent. Are you having any issues finding any particular talent? Carlos, do you have any issues?
I'm not, simply because I plugged myself into the iOS and Android developer community early on. What I did is, it was very difficult 5 years ago.
Well, this is a way that you kind of created something for everybody that benefits you in seeking your talent. He started the meetup groups, and he has meetup groups where software developers can meet and help each other with the latest or challenging issues. And so probably through those, you're saying...
Yeah, and 5 years ago, there were no iOS developers in Orlando, and you had to draw them in, or there was just a handful, and they were extremely expensive. So but we actually, my company and some people in our company started the iOS developers meetup group. We have over 700 people right now who are members. I think it's pretty much every single iOS developer in Orlando.
Those are all folks that can develop apps for the iPhones,
Apple devices,
products.
yes. And then we started the Android developers meetup group. So so they know me as a leader in their community and a community organizer. So whenever I have to tap into talent, I can just go to that community.
So you created your own mechanism for finding.
Yeah, and now I think that I sort of feed everyone else as well.
You should get a commission on all this.
But I think I could see that there are certain people who need to have certain very specific experience. Certain cloud engineers and some people that need to have certain enterprise level experience that are just not in Orlando and they're not going to be found in Orlando, that we're going to have to pull from elsewhere, and that's where things like Project ETO and being plugged into everything that the city is doing to elevate the brand has helped me know how to communicate the Orlando brand when I hire talent in, because it's very difficult to pull people into Orlando.
Amir, I know you're having to go to LA and other places to find your...
Right, and one of the things that, because virtual reality is that, like consumer virtual reality, we're at the early days of the internet, right? So the talent is not there, just like it was for iOS 5 years ago. So what we're doing is we're partnering with 3 companies, 2 of them are out of Hollywood, that have a very successful track record creating a lot of the movies, Transformers and all these others. One of them actually has like the next 10 years of Star Wars. And so we're partnering with them and another company that's created technology for businesses like Boeing, virtual reality, all these simulations. And we're coming up with these programs so that we can do workshops and other types of programs for people who have exposure so that they can determine their interest. And then we'll have all these different lines. We're also working with different schools to make sure that, this can be a part of, it could be a path for different people who want to learn these skills. I've also started a meetup. I have VR LA, VR New York, VR Florida. These are all meetups for virtual reality enthusiasts
But basically, you're trying to find some of your
developers.
talent outside of Florida. You're finding most of your talent outside Florida right now.
Yes, and I'm looking to train more people here because it's a new field. So we're looking to train a lot more people here so that we can have access to like a database or a factory of talent. Yeah.
Carol, are you having trouble finding talent at all?
Not really, and I think probably like what you guys were saying, we've recruited from out of the state of wherever I was since day one. I had no problem. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to just start and grow a company just from where I was. So, even down when we moved down to Florida and we were recruiting for NASA, I was not looking just at the Space Coast in this area. I was bringing people in from Utah, believe it or not, DC, all over. So, and we have such a wide skill set. We've got everywhere from your skilled workforce, which is welders and machinists, all the way up to scientists, PhDs, and that kind of thing. So it's pretty broad, but again, the benefit is I think we know how to recruit. We always look local first, and we've been lucky to be able to do that. But we also do a lot of the telecommuting, which I'm sure in your businesses you guys do the same thing. So it's kind of, and I've done that from day one of, listen, you don't necessarily have to work, in the location where I'm at if they're the right person. And so we've kind of, made that model work for us to benefit. So, and give them all the different skill sets. You guys, I think, are probably a little more specialized in some ways, and we do the software app, we have the iOS, that type of thing, but not in mass. And maybe that's where it gets more difficult. But for what we're doing, we don't have too much of an issue.
Yeah. Okay, great. Phil, any issues with talent?
Yes and no. I mean, on the engineering side, actually, I find this to be a really deep and wide talent pool in Central Florida. And the engineers that I've worked with throughout my entire career have always had to build things that just didn't exist before, right? So if you think about software development from the gaming context of building entertainment experiences to entertain millions of people, those are novel software. They're novel. That's like a key part of entertainment. It needs to be something you've never seen before. So we've always had an approach where you hire people that know how to just invent things essentially out of thin air. There are certain specialized skills that I think are difficult to find. Particularly on the big data side, so folks that know how to do things with technologies like Hadoop or NoSQL databases, a little harder to find, but really smart engineers can figure that out. The most difficult positions that we have to locate here are actually on the kind of SaaS side. It's more of a software as a service and the marketing and selling of those kinds of services, rather than folks that have sort of traditionally done like just pure digital marketing or have done inside sales. Having somebody that knows how to create the kind of content that draws visitors from a native search to your site and then converting those users to free trials and then converting them to sales, that's actually a skill set that's pretty broadly in place in places like Boston and Austin and Denver and San Francisco and Seattle, but not really here.
I know we talked about, you guys have had to do, you not only have you do run your companies, but you've done things to kind of add things to the entrepreneurial ecosystem because they weren't there, and you knew you needed them and you knew others needed them. We talked about, Carlos, you've started the Orlando Tech Association, various meetups. Phil, you've opened Canvas, the co-working space, because there wasn't a place for entrepreneurs to convene. I know, Mary, you're going to be holding the big summit, Business Innovation Growth for Entrepreneurs. I think you have featuring Randy Zuckerberg, the CTO from Facebook's coming. And so what are some things? Now you're down in Miami now, unfortunately. I don't get to see you as much, but what are you doing? What are you doing right now to kind of cultivate the ecosystem for other entrepreneurs?
And so the Big Summit, and thanks, Leslie, because the Big Summit, I first attended the Big Summit here in Orlando, which Leslie came up with, and I thought that was such a great opportunity to network and meet a lot of the different businesses. And so I've launched the Big Summit in Miami as a day of over 700 business leaders, visionaries, and other thought leaders to come together and share their insight and also learn and find out from other businesses that have the types of resources that they need to propel their own businesses. Brought a lot of great speakers that are going to be a part of it. Hopefully Miami is not too far for people to come from Orlando, especially, with some of the people that are going to be there. Basically now I'm looking to partner with any and everyone that can help us get the word out there. It's a great way to showcase technology and all the wonderful things that are going on here in Florida. But it's not just bringing people together for that one day. This is about matchmaking and finding out ways in which all these different companies can continue to enable each other. So we have the online community to keep the conversation going, but also to take action, post the summit. And we are very fortunate this year to have, Randy Zuckerberg, like you mentioned, CTO of Facebook. We also have someone from Apple, and quite a wonderful lineup of local businesses also that are going to be sharing. So I'm excited about it. That's what I'm doing to solve all the problems that I've talked about here today.
Right. And Carol, you do so much. on
Invited
enterprise-
VCs too.
I'm sorry.
I invited VCs as well.
Okay. That's good. You serve on a lot of boards, Enterprise Florida, Florida Chamber of Commerce. You do a lot to kind of make sure that people understand the needs of entrepreneurs. Tell us a bit more about how you kind of optimize the ecosystem for yourself and other entrepreneurs.
Yeah, definitely. We were just talking about this earlier. I can't say no to anything, And so, although I haven't started any of these organizations, if somebody asks me to be a judge or a mentor, there's Startup Quest, there's a tech expo type of thing that's going over in Brevard, there's Trep Hub, there's all kinds of Cat 5 awards. We're over here in Orlando. I'll do anything like that. I even try, I think, like we've talked about, it starts at the early ages, so I'm part of Junior Achievement of the Space Coast over there, and becoming a mentor. They have programs, Be Entrepreneurial, you teach in the class, and then that rolls into business plan, and I've had teams like that. So kind of every level become a part of a small seed fund for some of those entrepreneurs. But like you said, the thing that I felt I needed, because I felt pretty, uneducated and immature when it came to the political side, I thought I've got to pull it all together. For me meant getting involved and understanding about Enterprise Florida and at the Florida level chamber, and getting involved at a peripheral level politics, because that's where it stops for me. But to better understand. And the thing I discovered, I think I have a unique perspective now because I'm involved in all these different organizations, although it's stressful and it's crazy and I can hardly find time to breathe. But I can see what each is doing, and you start to really pull it together. And I can be a voice over in Brevard saying, hey, you need to stop doing this with your rice bowls over here. You need to get involved and see what's happening here. And then at that high level, hey, look what Space Florida is doing, and how do we all work together? So that's why I've just I've continued to try to stay as involved as possible, because I also believe I used to be one of those that would kind of complain and why aren't they doing this, and why does the EDC not care about the existing companies, and they're all about bringing other companies in. I thought, what? No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get involved.
Yep.
And then I'm going to learn, and then I'm going to make a change and an impact. Exactly.
Very
and so
good.
That's the reason I've been doing what I'm doing. So hopefully all that involvement will help at some level with this ecosystem that I'm still very much a part of.
Absolutely. So what I want to do before we close is I want everyone in this room to know what role you play in the innovation or an entrepreneurship ecosystem. And so we've spent some time talking about it, and you can be a part of the ecosystem. I just want to summarize and have you guys join in some of the things we talked about. Really supporting startups. If you're a big company or an organization, buy their products, trial their products, give them feedback, share your network of contacts, and make personal introductions. These are things you can be doing for your startups. Also, learn about the startups and technology companies and begin telling the story as you travel, as you begin to talk to others. Share what's happening in your community. Any other thoughts for this room? I think we also, probably as a state or a region, need a strategy for cultivating, a full spectrum of capital vehicles too. I think some of it's synchronous, some of it happens by chance, but some of it can be planned. So I think we need to play a role in this long-term goals of kind of getting the right vehicles in here, getting the right amount of angels, the right amount of outside capital, funding some internal venture funds, funding some more angel funds. So I think we as a community need to all participate in that kind of planning. Any other thoughts for this group? How can they help support what you're doing?
I would say three things. The first is to really emphasize the need to support startups through business. Because we have this short-term capital problem, this early-stage capital problem, That is a consequence of not having enough fundable companies here. The way that companies get fundable is they have revenue. And so, the easiest and fastest way that we can close that kind of gap is just by finding startups that have innovative and interesting products and services and doing business with them. The faster they get revenue, the more fundable they become. And as VCs make investments in the region and see those investments turn into exits, they're going to want to be here. They're going to be sourcing those deals directly. The second thing is demand from the media that they tell the story of entrepreneurship. And I think a big opportunity here is, like Channel Intelligence sold this last year to Google, right down here in Celebration, right? That's a great story. There was one article in the Sentinel about the exit of this company. Had the details.
What did they sell for?
It's like $160 million. I mean, that's a big deal for this area. But there should have been like 5 or 10 stories about Channel. What was their product? Why did they get bought? What was their founding story? What are the founders now doing as a consequence of this sale? And telling that sort of full story inspires more people to say, well, I could do that. And we get more people joining the ecosystem. I forgot what my third point was. It was going to be awesome.
Think about it, Carol.
I was going to bring it home.
It'll come to you as soon as we'll come back. Carol, what can everyone in this room do to ensure that we have a rich and vibrant entrepreneurial ecosystem?
I was just going to say what he said. No, but it is telling the story at every level. I mean, look at what the state of Florida has finally realized that, hey, they need to market this state, and that's why Enterprise Florida, what they've done over the last couple of years is absolutely amazing, to get the word out. And it just comes back to, like you said, telling the story. And it's interesting, you talked about Google. Authentic is a company that was over in
Melbourne.
Melbourne. I mean,
Bought by
300 and some crazy money,
Yeah.
and
they sell to
bought by Google.
Google, yeah.
Yeah, no, Apple. Sorry, Apple, and
Okay.
it was the fingerprint.
Right, the
I don't know if the
biometrics
story's not so
one, yeah.
great anymore, but because I had some issues with that whole fingerprint thing. But that's the point, and there wasn't much in the news really
Isn't that
at
funny?
all about that. So, but again, it becomes how do we market? It starts with us. It starts with a company like mine that knows about the technology or disruptive technology or the applications that you're doing, and starts talking and getting that word out. And that's where I think that's what
I think the fact that we even have this on the agenda for the Florida Chambers is new too. I mean, we haven't really spent the whole first day is kind of talking about it and becoming familiar with it. So I think that's a good start as well. And Career Source Florida is being very focused on it. So, Carlos, what can everyone in this room do?
Yeah, I think that those bullets you have there are perfect. But I think one additional thing is to start understanding that tech startups are never going to be, or at least not very quickly after their inception, companies that employ hundreds of people. And that's okay. Because number one, collectively, they are going to employ a lot of people in your area, but also that understand that there are some factors that have come out that the wages that the tech employee is paid set the wages for the rest of the region. They elevate the wages for the rest of the region. The other thing is for every tech job that's created, 2 or 3 indirect jobs are created as a result of that job being created. And that doesn't happen in the reverse. So, understanding those things, that these are going to be smaller companies, so pay attention to them, but the wages are going to be higher. They're going to set the wages for your region, and they're going to create other jobs, are going to start making you think differently about these companies and these ragtag group of people wearing jeans. And the other thing, just to piggyback on what Phil said, I've known Rob for many years, many years. We both did Ironman.
He's the founder of Channel Intelligence.
Rob White, the founder of Channel Intelligence. He left a slightly bitter person because of the lack of attention that he had. He sold the company, is actually $125 million. And I mean, he's now in Colorado. And I know he's investing in some companies in Central Florida, but I mean, we could have rallied behind him. And I think that he had been in Orlando for so long that he just quietly went about his business. And that's what a lot of us do. Carol was alluding to it. I know that Mary probably senses it, and Phil as well. Entrepreneurship is a very lonely road. So, a lot of people don't understand what you're doing. Your friends, family don't understand what you're doing. Your peers, some of your peers in the business world, not the tech world, don't understand what you're doing. Your peers in the tech world just don't. They're just doing their thing as well. So I think that chambers, municipalities, and the establishment can again rally around this industry in order to understand the challenges that we go through, and just provide that support by. Again, going by those bullet points because it's extremely important. But
Mary?
Right. I'm just going to echo what everybody on the panel has said, but in a way that relates to my business, for example. It's very difficult to find a lot of the companies to do business with the startups. So, for example, with us, we're currently developing these experiences. We're working with people from the government of Peru towards tourism. Florida is such a great tourism destination, but as a startup, it's very difficult to get some of these companies to kind of work with you. They want you to kind of go build it and then come back. But while in the process of building it, if you don't get that support, then, it kind of becomes a catch-22. So why not use this technology that exists to showcase everything that we have here, to stay ahead of innovation and to restore that, innovation leadership. Another example is being able to do business with a lot of the bigger companies that are here for a lot of us. Another thing is we're building experiences in sports. We're working with teams, outside of professional teams outside of the area. So again, just echoing everyone, and then with the media supporting all of this. So it's like we get, you get a lot of national attention even before you get some of the business dailies, talking about what it is that we're doing. So please support what we're doing, support the big summit, and help. I'm just echoing what everybody else is saying.
Bill
but
remembered
yeah.
his third one.
Finally, I remembered it. So to the extent that you have political capital that you want to leverage, the one kind of policy change I think we need to see in the state is to promote diversity and inclusion, immigration reform in our businesses. It is so, look at this panel, right? Like, I'm the only white guy up here, and that's good. Like, that is, I think it's testament to what's here in our local economy. In Silicon Valley, more than half of the venture-backed companies have an immigrant founder as a part of them. I think it's a diverse workforce is incredibly powerful, particularly when you're focused on innovation, because you want a wide range of experiences that lead to new ideas and new ways of thinking. It's incredibly important for us. So whatever your political views are on immigration, it actually is, I think, extremely important for entrepreneurship.
Well, please join me in thanking Phil, Carol, Carlos, and Mary. Thank you. So we have time for one quick question, then we're going to move on. We want to take our dialogue about talent just down to the next level, because we have some very interesting things to share with you that we've recently found out both at CareerSource and FIT. Any quick questions for our entrepreneurs? Todd?
I was the guy who threw my hands up when access to capital was mentioned, and it's because the first comment and straight down the line, unsolicited, all included access to capital. And I wanted to, you all may be aware of what exists. I'm an economic developer with money. We promote access to capital. But one more debt, you guys need equity. The state of Florida has some programs designed to help you. I didn't hear anyone mention those. Why not?
You guys know about the local programs?
Right. A lot of the local programs that I've come across have been, for example, tax breaks, right? And you have to have a lot of revenue in order to be able to access that tax break. When you're a startup with an idea looking for someone with a burning desire to write a check so you can get out very quickly, I think it's difficult to have to, or going through the banks, right? Or through an SBA. Coming out saying I need $500,000 to develop this idea, it's much more difficult to be able to access some of the programs that exist because they're for later stage companies. That's been my experience.
Well, and I have to say, even the later stage companies, because, like you said, the tax incentives, none of that works with us. We don't have anything brick and mortar, and I was already in Brevard. One person grew it to 200, but because I wasn't one that you could convince to come move there, and they're like, your family's there, you ain't go anywhere, there wasn't anything like that. So it's true, but now luckily the mindset's changed a little that you can't bring in large companies if you don't have that supplier and that, that support system already there. But we haven't been able to take advantage of any of those programs either. GrowFL, we're too big, yet we're too small to get anything else. And you were saying, all you gotta have to do is have revenue to get money. We got $45 million worth of revenue, and it's still hard to get money. You know what I mean? It
You
just
should invest in
depends.
my company.
I
should
need
talk.
money, though.
I would say one element to access to capital isn't necessarily just check writing ability, it's speed of decision making and speed of funding, right? So when I left EA and a handful of engineers followed me out, there was a brief window of opportunity where we could go start something, and if we could get funding for it, and I raised $3 million, that was the initial amount of capital that got us out the door. That would be very difficult to find using other channels in the state just because they're much, much slower. And the window closes and the opportunity's gone. Shelley's got
Shelley?
a question.
Quick question. Almost every one of you talked about trying to work with the establishment, whether it was government, chambers, et cetera, to get what you need and get more information. Carlos, you mentioned that you had a point of contact at the City of Orlando. Was it one point of contact, and for all of you, did you reach out to these organizations, or did they reach out to you?
For me personally, it happened organically. Actually, they became a client first. We bid on a project, an app, many years ago, and that's how we established a relationship. So again, it's perhaps luck. But there were several people in different departments that knew about us, and so we established different point of contacts. But I think that just like any organization is from the CEO down, I think that Mayor Dyer really took an interest in the tech community, and several of us, Phil included, several of us just happen to be downtown, so within blocks from City Hall. So I mean, he toured Echo when we first opened our doors, practically, because we had won this contract, and he was like, "There's a mobile app development company here." So those things started to happen, and I mean, that was 5 years ago. So I think organically that interest grew, but it wasn't. It wasn't just one person, and it wasn't. I didn't really approach them to establish a relationship.
Right. And one thing that, helped my company a lot, I was actually in Los Angeles, and I found out about the Creative Village, a lot of the digital media initiatives that were going on, which I was part of the initial Creative Village. And so I approached the EDC here, which the EDC did an article in Textures on my company. Through that is how I met Leslie, who's been an incredible champion, introduced me to a lot of different businesses here, constantly pushing and pumping me to move forward. But that one article actually started like a ripple effect for me. It's also how the Department of State became aware of what I was doing, and I became an evangelist on behalf of the U.S. Department of State. So the EDC has been helpful in that way through through the article and showing me different places. I was leasing Building 100 out of Universal for a few years, and that was all through some of those contacts. But I reached out to the EDC, so it was beneficial in that way.
So I guess that kind of reinforces your idea of, telling, we all have to tell this, telling the story is pretty powerful, so.
Yeah, and government agencies have a big spotlight they can shine, right? The mayor can shine a big spotlight on folks, and media will pay attention. That's really valuable.
Very good. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day today. Thank you.
Glad you stayed here.